Hey team, today we're gonna talk about... Excuse me, just a second, I gotta go take care of something. My move is done charging. Whew. Alright, now that that's taken care of, let's get in the video. 2-turn moves. These are another favorite type of move of mine. Last time we went over one of these in a video was the multi-hit moves. Those are very, very cool. A lot of changing functions going on there. Go check that video out if you haven't already. This one will be back here waiting for you. No, I don't mind. Go ahead. Alright, now that those jokers are out of here. 2-turn moves. This is something that Pokemon has always had. You know, on the first turn, you charge, go into some animation, and then on the second turn, bam, pow, sparks and lightning, everything's happening. There's a couple different types of them too. There's even more subsects of a subsect. Some of them give you invulnerability on that first turn. You have a lot of moves that either send you up into the air or send you beneath the surface in some way. Some of them are just, you know, you take a turn where you are totally vulnerable, and on the second turn you just do a poop ton of damage. And there's some of them more recently. This is a more recent type of move on this, are the ones that give you stats. Ones that either charging or the charge is for the stats. I want to start with the semi-invulnerable move sets and the history thereof. There was a couple of them in Gen 1. We had Dig, we have Fly, and you know, those are two Pokemon classic. Dig, a 100 base, 100 accuracy move, ground type, takes you underground on the first turn. You are semi-invulnerable, semi. Not totally invulnerable, we'll get into that. And then on the second turn, you do that damage, you do that ground type damage. And then Fly, essentially doing the opposite, 70 damage, 95 accuracy, flying type move. Takes you up into the sky on the first turn, and then you do your damage on the second turn. That 95 accuracy sneaks up on you. The number of times that I've missed Fly because of it, and I'm like, Fly has accuracy? Yeah, apparently. So these moves are all pretty much invulnerable in this generation, except for Bide, Swift, and Transform. Transform not really doing much, but you know, Ditto and Mew are able to remember what those Pokemon look like, and Swift never misses. That is the case here. Swift is not a great move otherwise, but it does have that going for it, that it never misses. And then Bide, which is a historically awful, terrible move, and just because of the way that it works, not even going to go over it in this, because it's not really a 2-turn move. Bide hits it, so watch out for the Bide offense against your Fly and Dig user. These moves do not take up PP on the first turn. They only do it when there's damage. You can't switch during the move's initial usage. You have to let the effect resolve. And then if you get any sort of interrupting effects, the move is canceled, or would be canceled. But in this generation, if your Pokemon goes into paralysis and you get the hard set of paralysis on the first turn of Fly or Dig, you just stay down there. You are essentially invulnerable unless you either go through the entire move or you swap from there. You're just off the stage. You don't take damage. What a fantastic game-breaking bug to make players bank on. You know, you gotta bank on a negative effect happening to you while you're in the certain turn of a move, and you're just invincible for the rest of the game. This was fixed even in Pokemon Stadium before Gen 2 came out, but in Gen 1 in RBY, absolutely bonkers when it would go off. Dig is a pretty common move also. I can't say that either of these moves are really great beyond the Fly invulnerability glitch type thing going on. Dig is very accessible. It's on the TM. Same thing with Fly. Fly is really odd in Gen 1. A lot of Pokemon that you would expect it to get it don't get it. Like Charizard only gets it in yellow, and Dragonite doesn't get it at all. Very, very odd stuff. But they're both fine. Their Dig is nice if you want to give non-ground type Pokemon coverage. Fly is useful for other reasons. You know, it's the fast travel HM. It'll let you move from town to town. So certainly it has a reason for existing, even if the actual move isn't that great. Then in Gen 2, that lovely glitch with the paralysis, that's fixed. That's fixed now. We're all good on there. And there's some new moves that can interact with these two moves in their semi-invulnerable turn as well. We got Lock On and Mind Reader, which essentially just stay after the move is used. On the next turn, if you use a move, it cannot miss. And that means in the sky or in the ground. Don't you worry, you're gonna get hit by them. And there's certain moves that work during the skip turn, whether or not Lock On or Mind Reader were used, you know, adding some more flavor to them. Like a Pokemon's in the sky, you could get hit by a tornado. So for Fly, these moves are Gust, Thunder, Whirlwind, Twister. Gust and Twister actually do double damage. You know, Pokemon's flying up in the air, a Gust or a Twister, they're gonna do a bunch of damage to them. I really like that you can hit Whirlwind during this turn also. This is something I did not know prior to doing the research for this. I think that's really, really cool. It's a good interaction because it's always been kind of unclear to me what Whirlwind actually like does. Like if I was there to watch Whirlwind, because like Hariyama learns it in a later generation, and this kind of cleared it up for me where it's like, oh, it's a literal whirlwind. There's not some weird Pokemon thing going on. Like the Pokemon is thrown away. Still remains to be clear how that throws them into their Pokeball and brings another one back out, but you know, they gotta make certain stuff work. And then these moves for Dig are Earthquake, Magnitude, and Fissure, which Earthquake and Magnitude do double damage. I'm sure that Fissure would do double damage as well, but it's already an OHKO, so nothing to worry about there. These are nerfs for these moves, or other moves that are introduced featured these setbacks as well, but this seems more of a flavor thing where it's like, well, the Pokemon's up in the air. Certain moves certainly would go up in the air. The Pokemon's underground. Certainly there would be things that do more damage, or at least some damage beneath the ground. So while they are nerfs, I do appreciate the flavoring that Pokemon is adding to their moves. So there's certain niche interactions that happen because of the logic surrounding them. I do think that's cool. More glitches going on in this generation. This list of moves here, but you can't use Attract, Curse, Foresight, Mean Look, Mimic, Nightmare, Spiderweb, and Transform. You cannot hit these even if you use Lock On or Mind Reader. And you can't lower their stats even if you use Lock On and Mind Reader. So kind of falling flat with the addition of those two moves, because a lot of those moves have some decent power going on. Like Attract in the actual games is usually pretty annoying. Same with Mean Look, Mimic. They do have pretty strong uses. Actually, like doing Pokemon, not being able to hit any of them even though you put in the work for it, mid. And unfortunately, Dig was nerfed down to 60 power. You hate to see it. Dig has been, you know, tearing it up in Gen 1 with that 100 base power. Like, that was good, but 60, it still has the fly-like effect. Dig can also be used to take you back to the last Pokemon Center you used. So kind of like it's a fast travel, but not as good as Fly. It takes you back to the last save point, essentially. Dig's always going to have that going for it, no matter what they do to the move. Then in the next generation, we got some new moves. Dive is here, a water type version of this, where it's essentially like a Dig. It's 6100, except it's water type, and it goes into the ocean. And this was a big thing in Hoenn in the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald games, because you needed to go underwater to do some of the interactions there. And Dive has kind of gone off and on as an HM or a TM, and because of that, it's like move pool Pokemon are odd across the generations. It's not a great move by any means. It's a physical water type move for the types of Pokemon that are interested, but it's had a really weird spread of the Pokemon that actually get access to it. Probably one of my favorite moves in the entire Pokemon series, they added Bounce, which is Fly, but better by all metrics. 85 base, 85 accuracy, which is not amazing compared to, you know, your standard 100, but it's still gonna hit the great majority of the time, nothing like Focus Miss. And that has a 30% chance to paralyze on that drop down, which is just, oh, that is ridiculous. You get some invulnerability, and then on the way back down, you even maybe paralyze. 30% for paralysis is a amount that you cannot ignore. Bounce also has a really weird spread of available Pokemon. When it was originally introduced, it had very few Pokemon that got access to it, so it was not a very commonly seen move. Playing in like Fire Red and Leaf Green, the only Pokemon you would usually see it on was Rapidash, that evolution line. It was cool getting to see it, but it was not very common. More Pokemon got it later, and it's eventually a TM, but for now, it's relatively rare. Dive is not, because it's on an HM. And those glitches were patched. You know, the ones I mentioned in Gen 2, they're gone. They managed to get the glitches on the new generations. Gen 4, there's some more new moves. we got Shadow Force, Giratina's signature move, which is a 2-turn move. This move is actually great. I think this is one of the better moves to be talked about in this whole video. Shadow Force is a ghost type physical, 120 base, 100 accuracy, and you go invulnerable on the first turn, you fade into the shadows, and then you hit on the second turn. This move hits through protection, any of the protect type moves, and it removes them if they're on the field. And later, when more protect type moves are added into the game, this is a bigger deal because like in a double battle and a Pokemon uses Wide Guard and Giratina uses Shadow Force, it rips the Wide Guard away, which is, it's a pretty significant downside for the person receiving the Shadow Force. 100%. Dive gets a buff to 80, which is, you know, pretty decent. And now that, but don't worry, there's moves that do double damage to it. Surf and Whirlpool do double damage to Dive, and of course, hit through the invulnerability. Another really, I can't say that I don't agree with it, but I'm not having fun with it, was that in the generations prior to this, any of these invulnerability Pokemon moves, you could catch wild Pokemon through it. If a Pokemon used Dig or used Fly, well, I'm still gonna catch you. But now you can't. You can't catch Giratina when it's in this Shadow mode, and that's really sad because I like catching Pokemon when logic dictates otherwise. That was something I could do in Fire Red and Leaf Green, and now I'm sad about it. Some benefit for the wild Pokemon of the era. And a really weird move. This is one of the more intricate things going on in the next generation. Looking at Gen 5 now for these moves. You have Skydrop. It's 60 base, 100 accuracy, flying type physical move where you take the enemy Pokemon with you, where you go up into the air, you grab them, you take them with you, and they lose a turn because of it. And then when they drop down, they take damage. This move has had a ton of issues and glitches surrounding it because it's a very odd, mechanically working move. Actually banned in the Gen 5 VGC format onwards because in this generation, it was discovered that it just did not work. Very buggy, has had a lot of glitches across the ages. I had to do a lot of testing to see about how Skydrop like actually works in a single battle. It's pretty similar to Fly, where you take the Pokemon up with you and then you drop them back down, and then they get to take their turn. So they do lose their first turn, but they do not lose their second one, unless they try to use a move like Protect. You cannot protect Skydrop because you're in the air. If you try to go first when you're getting Skydropped, you lose your turn, because if you go first, then you're still in the invulnerability, but if you get dropped, then you get your turn. This also does not do any damage to flying type Pokemon, even though it takes them with them, which I think makes sense. You know, the bird is not gonna get dropped. It's flying. It's okay. Also, eventually, can't even lift Pokemon heavier than 200 kilograms, which, you know, Pokemon has some weight class related moves like low kick in an early one that was added, but this really hurts the like overall viability of the move, for me at least, because that's not something you can really predict for. Weight is not really in the operation when it comes to like doing battle. It's not something that you can calculate for, especially if you're doing like competitive battling or like VGC or singles or something. That's not usually factored into the viability of a Pokemon. So if I'm using Skydrop, there's gonna be some scenario of cases where it's just like, oh, it failed. Oh, I was up against Groudon. Oh, that's so sad. I still think it's a really cool move, and it's surprising that they don't have more like this where you physically interact with your opponent. And I mean, I guess this is the extreme where for the turn you take them out of the game. It feels very like grudge matchy, like no holds barred, like I'm just gonna grab you. Like we're not gonna be playing by the rules anymore. No more honorable fighting going on. I'm just gonna grab you and we're going up. We're going up and then I'm dropping you. So sorry about that. Really cool move, but it was one that I could never get to work when I was playing Pokemon as a kid. It also had a very limited move pool. The only Pokemon that I ever knew could learn this move, I know that there's a few more now, was Braviary. Braviary, I thought when I was playing Black and White, when the games came out, I was like, oh, that's its signature move, but it's actually not. It's just a very limited move pool. Next move that was added was Phantom Force. This really perplexes me. I also really dug in on this one because Phantom Force has the exact same effect as Shadow Force, except it does 30 less damage, so it's 90 base, and a bunch of other ghost types can get it. So it's like they were like, well, this is Giratina's signature move, but we want everyone else to get it, so I'll just make Giratina's do a little bit more damage because Giratina's like the Shadow. That's the Shadow Force. This is Phantom Force. This is small change compared to Shadow Force. So it does the pretty much the exact same thing. Additionally, in this generation, those two moves, they do double damage and bypass accuracy on minimize, which I don't understand why. If that makes sense to you, you know, let me know, but I can't reason that. They go into the shadows and then, uh-oh, I'm small. That Pokemon is going to do a bunch of damage to me. This is so sad. And that was an effect that was taken away a generation later, because these moves are both still in Pokemon. They weren't culled during the Gen 8 removal of moves, and that effect was taken away. Additionally, speaking of Gen 8, because no changes were made on this front in Gen 7, Max Guard of Dynamax Pokemon, the Super Protect is not broken by Shadow Force and Phantom Force. You know, more reasons that Dynamax is just absolutely busted, and they wanted to make sure that they used those three moves. You were just essentially a god, but for some reason it does not break that form of Protect. Those are the semi-invulnerable moves of Pokemon and the changes that came with them. So next, let's take a little bit of a intermission going into the next session and talk about some of the generational changes that they made, which do affect those moves, but also are going to more greatly affect the charge moves and stat charge moves that we're going to talk about next. Which is why I am putting this section right here, so don't hate me for not mentioning it at the beginning. So in Gen 4, they added an ability called No Guard, which this was originally just a thing from a champ. Abilities were weird when they came out, but plenty of Pokemon have a No Guard now. And this ability makes it so you hit all your moves, no matter what their accuracy is, but you get hit by all moves, no matter what their accuracy is. And this applies for Fly and Dig. Even if they're just using like Tackle or something, you get hit through the ground, you get hit in the sky using your semi-invulnerability moves. There's actually two Pokemon that can learn Fly that also get No Guard in Mega Pidgeot and Golurk. Golurk can fly, trust me, it rockets around according to the Pokédex because it's a Golem, trust me. Golurk can fly and it gets No Guard. If you've ever wanted to see something silly but not at all helpful, you can use Fly on your No Guard Golurk and get hit through it, get hit through the semi-invulnerable turn. Wouldn't that be great? And if Mega Pidgeot was still around, you know, rest in peace, my flying friend, but you could also do the same thing on it. This works both ways. A No Guard Pokemon is pretty effective in dealing with some of the stall that you can engage in. That is the one big meta success of these types of moves, is that you can engage in stall activities. That's an extra turn of leftovers. That's an extra turn of healing if something's down on the board. That's an extra turn of poison damage, of burn damage on your opponent, and a successful set on Dragonite for a while. Dragonite Fly, Dragonite was a successful stall Pokemon because of the turn of invulnerability. It was very, very helpful. So being able to go around that while niche is worth mentioning, because No Guard can hit through those moves. And if a Pokemon is using that strategy, if they are bothering to use Fly or Dig as part of their main strategy at all, No Guard will probably wreck them. Next, they added a move called Gravity, which, you know, I could have mentioned during the flying sections, but I think it was cooler to mention here. You know, don't hate me again. Gravity is a field effect that can be applied. One of the more interesting field effects, because it's very specific. Then gravity is increased on the battlefield, and flying type Pokemon lose their ground and vulnerability for one, and then a lot of flying moves can't go off, those specifically being Fly and Sky Drop. Because of the gravity, you know, they can't take off, and gravity will cancel these moves if used during the semi-invulnerable turn, but most of the time they're just not going to be able to be gotten off at all. There's some more moves that interact, specifically with Fly. They really do not like Pokemon flying off into the air. I think the Fly sets were really getting Pokemon down bad. There's Smackdown and 1,000 Arrows, and both of these moves, not only do they do their damage, 1,000 Arrows is a ground type that hits flying types, it sends them straight down. And this works on flying types where it takes away their ground vulnerability, but also knocks them out of their semi-invulnerable flying moves. Fly, Bounce, Sky Drop, canceled by these moves. And then probably the most exciting generational change, which affects pretty much every move in this video, is the addition of the held item Power Herb. Because Power Herb is a held item which is consumed upon use, but the way that you use it is that you queue up a 2-turn move, and if it's a charging move, which the great majority of them are, the first turn is taken away. You don't have to deal with it, and you do the effect of the second move. In a lot of the cases with the semi-invulnerable moves, the benefit a lot of the time is getting to go invincible for a turn. You still get to punch through with Power Herb, except for Sky Drop. Sky Drop does not punch through with Power Herb. I think that one makes a good deal of sense. The charge moves that we're about to talk about, Power Herb Herb is a great boon for them. And a lot of those moves, they're very, very bad without Power Herb in a lot of situations. Let's get into them. These are moves where nothing happens on the first turn. And then on the second turn, if you're still alive, you know, I hope I'm still kicking after taking all the solar power, and you get to do a bunch of damage usually. Some of these moves are very bad. They are even worse than the 2-turn effect already implies. PP is only taken when the move actually goes through. The charge turn does not affect anything. If disrupted, the move is paused. What does that mean is that if this usually comes into effect when you're asleep. So if you get put to sleep after queuing up one of these moves, next time you get to choose your actions, it is disrupted by the sleep, but you can only choose that move. You can still only choose Solar Beam if you were queuing Solar Beam before you put to sleep. You can't choose any other move, so that means that you couldn't switch into Sleep Talk if you were for some reason running that set. You still can only choose that charge type move. Not a very common interaction. It could come up. It is something that they set up in the game. In Generation 1, 3 of these type of moves. We have Solar Beam, which this move gets very good later. Right now it is a 120 base, 100 accuracy grass type move. When Pokemon takes in Sunlight, first turn, hits for that amount of damage on the second turn. It's grass type, does a lot of damage for 100 accuracy. Over 2 turns, it's essentially using a 60 base move twice. You kind of got to consider why you're using it, but it's alright. It's fine. They're going to make it better, I promise. Next, we have Sky Attack, which is, I think this one is much more worthy of being this way, is a 140 base, 90 accuracy flying move. Again, it's like hitting 70 twice. Maybe you can sneak up on somebody with the amount of damage that it does, but really just not worth it. These are not worth using moves. And then Bell of the Ball, probably the move that I hate most in Pokemon, just because why the hell does it exist, is Razor Wind. I hadn't even heard of when I started. I think the first time that I saw Razor Wind was an Absol using it in Ruby and Sapphire, and I played through Leaf Green without ever encountering this move. I was like, what the hell is Razor Wind? Absol's using it? That's gonna be a flying type move. It's gonna do a ton of damage. I was wrong. Don't worry, I was wrong. An 80 base, 75% accuracy, normal type move. Actual garbage. Actual garbage. 2 turns for that? To miss a quarter of the time or do 80 damage? Actual abomination, and it does not get better either. This is the exception to the rule. The next generation, Razor Wind is given a crit chance, even a crit chance boost, you know, kind of like Slash. Still not good, still awful. It has 75% accuracy. I'm not using that move. And then Solar Beam. Solar Beam got Power Herb buff a lot earlier because Weather was introduced to this generation. They just have Sun and Rain in this Gen 2 setting, but in Sun, Solar Beam goes off automatically, and cutting down that first turn, things are now great for Solar Beam. You actually want to use Solar Beam. You're in the sun. Oh, I'm just going to do 120 damage now, and it's going to be like a totally normal move. This is amazing. It does do half in rain because of flavor, and I think that that's fair. If you get caught out in the rain trying to use Solar Beam, you can't, you take the 2 turns and it does half damage, so you're just totally shit out of luck if you use it in rain. But this is a pretty easy setup to do Solar Beam in sun. And then in Gen 3, of course, this gets even better with the weather abilities being introduced. Solar Beam is halved in the new weathers, Hail and Sandstorm as well, but with the introduction of Groudon and the Drought ability that just sets Sun for free without having to use Sunny Day, Solar Beam is a great move. Solar Beam is a great operation to engage in. Sky Attack now has a 30% flinch chance. I really like this move now. I really liked using Sky Attack in this gen because it does do a lot of damage, and the flinch chance is an added bonus where it's like, okay, I'm hitting them for a bunch, and if they live, probably could get a flinch happening as well. Getting way better. That's still not great. That is still 70 across 2 turns with a bonus only on the second one. Still not great. Razor Wind loses its crit chance. Let's give it up for Razor Wind. Worst Pokemon move literally of all time, but it's 100% accuracy now. So finally, I've wanted to do 40 damage across 2 turns. This is the worst move of all time, I fear. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Gen 4, it crits again, so just amazing stuff from Razor Wind. Still terrible. Still terrible. But now Sky Attack is really worth looking at because of Power Herb's introduction. Getting to do all that damage with the potential flinch chance on Sky Attack is now something you actually want to think about because of Power Herb. You only get to do it once, but that's a gigantic attack. If that's your flying type move, like you do it. You get that one giant smack in there, could be worth looking at. Next, we have the additions of Ice Burn and Free Shock in the Generation 5 games. These are Kyurem's 2-form special moves. They're both 140-90 Ice type, and they have a 30% chance of burn and paralysis, respectively. These moves aren't bad. Those are really decent effect chances, especially with Power Herb if you choose to use him. The issue is Kyurem Black and White's move pools are otherwise pretty good. They're ironed out really well. Other than that, I think that if Kyurem was not a legendary and was a weaker Pokemon, or if more Pokemon got the moves, that these moves would be better, or comparatively better. But they're just, on a Pokemon like that is like a legendary, a box art legend, technically a box art legendary, really, really good otherwise, it kind of shows that the moves are not worth using. Next time we get an addition to this list would be in Gen 7, when Lurantis, you know, the funny pink pants plant mantis Pokemon, it gets a physical counterpart to Solar Beam, which I thought was really, really cool on its addition. That is a archetype of move that I really, really like, where the special edition of the move gets a physical edition and just allows for more facets of play in your Pokemon, because Lurantis can't use Solar Beam well, of course, so it uses Solar Blade. It does have 5 more base power, essentially the same. It works exactly the same. All of the mechanics of Solar Beam apply to Solar Blade. In Gen 8, it got put on a TM, so lots of Pokemon got access to it. Sorry, Lurantis, but we're going to spread the love on this one. And then the greatest change, I think, on this list that they have added to this date, they really fixed everything for the charge moves. They made everything okay. They removed Razor Wind from the game. I think with that removal, just a lot of people and a lot of Pokemon were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief that that horrible, unholy move was removed from Pokemon, because a lot of really good moves were removed, but at the very least, Razor Wind is finally gone. And if it comes back, I will be very upset with them. And that's all for charge moves, with starting with a do nothing turn, going straight into a do damage turn. Big damage, you know, big damage for big investment. They're pretty good. They're okay. Solar Beam is very worth using because of the access to the Drought ability now, and you'll see a lot of combo teams like that in doubles, where Pokemon will have Drought and the other Pokemon is using either Solar Blade or Solar Beam. It's very effective. It's very effective in that way. And Sky Attack can surprise people. Razor Wind is god-awful. Don't talk to me about it. Ever. And then finally, the final move in this pool are those that charge up on the first turn, kind of like the charge moves, but they also give you status effects. And I think these had the potential to always have been the best. They have the potential to be. I think that because of the awkward introduction period to them, there's not very many of them, there's only 3. And the first one was originally a normal charge move, but it eventually got a stat boost in Gen 3, Skull Bash. That one's weird because of that, but the other 2 I hope to see more of, because they're very, very good. They're very, very, very good. So, Skull Bash, introduced in Gen 1, and it was on a TM. It was originally a 100 base, 100 accuracy normal type move that just do big damage. That's 50 for over 2 turns. Very good. This is like if Razor Wind sucked a little bit less, and it's still very, very bad, but it's a little bit better than Razor Wind. So it's a little tiny bit better. Eventually, this move is buffed, where for that first turn, you get a +1 defense stat. That's a very interesting change, because the idea is that the Pokemon, like Blastoise, is like tucking its head into its shell and then charging like head first, getting value out of both of those turns. The first turn you are essentially using Defense Chrome, and the second turn you are using a slightly weaker Body Slam. You know, no additional effect on it, which that is a cool move, and that is certainly unique. There are no other moves like Skull Bash at the time period. Kind of an awkward addition, because defense is not raising the damage, and unless it's a Pokemon that is trying to tank while also doing damage, which is not extremely common, it's not super valuable. But this is a great idea. This is a great archetype that they will add a few more moves of, and I hope to see more of in the coming generations. In Gen 4, they added the Power Herb, and that did everything that it did, and it finally comes to fruition in Xerneas' special move in Gen 6, Geomancy. Geomancy is a game-breaking move. It is a charge move, and the charge doesn't do anything on the first turn, no stats on that turn. Second turn, you don't do any damage, but you get +2 special attacks, +2 special defense, and +2 speed. So when this is combined with Power Herb, things get very, very nasty, very, very fast, and Xerneas was the subject of a lot of hatred in competitive Pokemon, both both singles and doubles because of this combo. A lot of counterplay and a lot of counterplay was developed because of it. This is the height of charge moves. This is the height of 2-turn moves, and if they want to do more ridiculous, bonkers, banana nonsense with them, this is how they have to be. That is an extremely ridiculous stat line for Xerneas, a fairy type special attacker, already to get that set of bonuses onto it. And it's still very good. It was good in 6, it was good in 7, it was good in 8. Xerneas is amazing because of this move. This is the height of charge moves. Xerneas is very, very complicated to deal with because of this. And not to mention, unlike the other damaging moves where, you know, usually, I mean, to knock out a Pokemon, you're gonna have to keep using damaging moves over and over and over. But the big benefit here with the stat bonus is that you only need to use this move once. You use Geomancy and you're done charging. You have +2 special attack and +2 speed. You're a sweeper now. You can just use Moonblast. You can just use whatever you want. That's the big difference here. You have to keep using moves to win, but you get one stat boost like this one set up, probably in good enough shape to win the entire game off of it. Skull Bash is 130 base now. I thought worth mentioning. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just like Geomancy. It does work the same way, where if you use Power Herb on Skull Bash, you get the damage done and defense on the same turn. It's certainly more valuable. You're getting a lot of stuff very quickly. And then in Gen 8 though, finally a move that I think is like how charge moves should work. Geomancy is a very rare case. That one is a game-breaking, destructive move. Meteor Beam is added in Gen 8 on the expansion pass. It is part of the Sword and Shield DLC. On the first turn, you get a +1 special attack boost. On the second turn, you do 120 damage and it has 90 accuracy. It's a rock type special move. So unfortunately, that kind of limits the pool that it has access to. Not a lot of rock type special attackers that can really benefit from this move fully. One that I like to use and see use from is Nihilego, the Ultra Beast, and that's really, really cool. But this is a great move to use with Power Herb because you Power Herb it and you get the boost, and it still orders sequentially. So on the first turn, you get the special attack +1, and then you do the 120 base damage. That's great. That's really, really good, and that gives you a +1 special attack to use other moves with. You can continue to chain Meteor Beam from there, even though you're taking the 2 turns from then on, but you're still getting the stat boost, but you have other moves. Meteor Beam is a setter and a damage dealer. That's the full potential of these moves. Setters and damage dealers, and if you fully invest in them with Power Herb, you can really, really make things happen. And I think that's where these moves could shine the most, is if, let's say Skull Bash raised attack instead of defense. That would be a very strong move because it would scale into itself. Defense is not the worst, but is more situational because you're depending on your opponent's attacks, but it's not giving you an explicit game-winning buff, unfortunately. Still good though. I hope to see more moves. I hope to see more charge moves, period, because they've added them every so often. There's enough of them for me to think that this was worth making a video on, let's put it that way. I hope to see more of them, because they're still adding them. Meteor Beam was added as late as the Gen 8 DLC. There's certainly going to be more of them in the game, I hope. And they keep putting spins on these concepts. Maybe we could see one in speed, you know, like a some sort of flame charge variant where you get like +1 or +2 speed and then do like fire or electric damage or something. That would be really, really cool. And I think would not be as great of an effect as Meteor Beams is, but it'd still be very, very useful on a Power Herb Pokemon, especially if it covered some strange Anise like Meteor Beam, because even though Rock type special is not that common, there are some Pokemon like Nihilego that really, really benefited from that specific combination. I hope to keep seeing more of these. It's a really cool mechanic, and I'm glad that the feature exists, because even if it's not that great and it's only seen niche use generally across the board, it's a very cool mechanic, and ones that kind of bend the rules of established mechanics in Pokemon. Like for the great majority of the time, unless you're using Protect, you always get to hit the enemy Pokemon. And so like specifically interacting with the environment, changing the environment even, is a really, really cool effect. I hope that Pokemon keeps doing that. It's super, super cool. I hope Scarlet and Violet's got some of these moves in them. It seems like they're really testing the waters and pushing the envelope with the moves that were included in the Gen 8 DLC. Hopefully they keep doing it, you know, in Gen 9. And that, my friends, is the complete, not so long history on 2-turn moves in Pokemon. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you thought down below. I hope to keep doing this type of video, and I appreciate y'all for making it this far. That's all I got for you. Till next time, see you later.